The Ultimate Guide to True Everlasting Happiness by Mahlangu. Forward. We live in the era of globalization, comprising of interconnected and borderless nations, specializing in the free flowing of individuals, information, knowledge, transnational corporations, technology, and labor. E-commerce is running rampant with online shopping websites and consumers who are addicted to shipping products to their households. Despite attempts made by postmodernism and post-development studies to discredit and move beyond the theory and practice of modernity, such attempts have proven to be fruitless. This is because modernity is not subject to time and space. Modernity has modeled itself as a proactive agent that assists humans in adapting to changing conditions presented by the forever changing nature of the present. It does this by forecasting the future and preparing individuals. This, of course, helps us in a variety of ways, as without modernity, the world would revert back to the state of nature, which is survival of the fittest. Humans would have to contend with a changing environment based on how resourceful, strong, and tactical they are. But with modernity, scientists can predict the state of the Earth in the upcoming years and prevent such a fate through inventions and innovations. For example, by predicting the likelihood of the occurrence of global warming in the near future, experts advise civilians, the government, and businesses on how to take extra precautions to deter the catastrophe. However, regardless of the ease of communication, the internet, the knowledge economy, and all the niceties produced by modernity, such conveniences, instead of bringing a state of pure bliss to the Earth population, has brought uncertainty, anxiety, and depression. The majority of the world's population worries about keeping up with the latest trends and developments. Others are addicted to their mobile devices, sifting through social media like there's no tomorrow, seeking approval from peers and friends alike, and end up feeling isolated from the rest of the world, while others are deluded by materialism and the ideology of free choice. No matter the advancement of infrastructure and the transitions of regions to urbanism and metros, poverty and hunger is still witnessed every single day. Unemployment is still worsening in many countries, especially in the third world. Most people survive on self-employment, be it the informal sector selling clothes, food, and other necessities in the streets of central business districts, malls, and also going door to door to have their merchandise sold. Others become salespeople for companies selling perfumes. Every day is a struggle, and the pressure of not being successful makes people succumb to drugs, alcohol, and other substances to get through the day, which becomes a vicious cycle throughout their lives. The COVID-19 pandemic and its spread has changed numerous factors in our daily lives. Most businesses have shut down. The unemployment rate has increased significantly. Our ways of life have drastically changed, with schools now presenting their study materials through online platforms, and other businesses have also been forced to operate online. My philosophy of happiness is traditionally rooted in the family unit. One can hardly claim to be happy when one's family is suffering. Although as one grows and becomes independent, developing different worldviews from their relatives due to their interactions with the outside world, institutional education or self-education, one cannot shake off the foundation of his morals and ethical principles being tied to their upbringing and their family. One's family determines how one engages and fits into society. Family builds one's character and overall etiquette. Of course, a family may be disorganized, abusive, and a bad influence to the individual. However, one may draw lessons from such a family on how not to be and how to be. An individual's psychological makeup may be affected to recognize any difference, which is exactly the purpose of this book. It is a helpful guide for those who are trying to navigate their way in a world filled with confusion, devastation, harsh realities, and temptations. I do not intend on being exclusive or turning a blind eye to those who have abandoned their families but have still nonetheless have become successful. Refugees who have lost contact with their families due to their escape from a politically unstable country are orphans. The source of true happiness should not stem from outside influence. One should be able to be happy on their own by remaining positive, doing what brings them joy, valuing themselves, learning how to change what saddens them, and accepting what is beyond their control. I was truly inspired by various authors, whom from their writings I developed an unavoidable urge to write this material. Writers such as Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life and Antidote to Chaos, Mark Manson's the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. However, what I write should not be attributed to them, as this is my independent work, with ideas sparked by my scholarship and daily observance of human behavior. Political ideologies. A political ideology refers to a set of systematic ideas, values, and beliefs about the organization of society. Political ideologies have long been noted as the main drivers of divisions and tensions in society. Although they tend to contrast and oppose each other at extremes, what they all boil down to is the issue of the economy. In short, the economy is how individuals operate in maximizing utility, satisfaction, under limited resources. This involves how resources are distributed and how they are efficiently and effectively consumed. Economic actors include consumers, government, businesses, and international trade and finance. However, political ideology is not a synonym for the economy. It rather serves as a determiner of the economy and how the economy operates, and it also extends and expands its influence to other matters such as the social, environmental, legal, technology, and the military. Political ideologies range from realism, liberalism, Marxism, structuralism, neoliberalism, social constructivism to forms of rules such as monarchs, autocracy, military rule, anarchy, theocracy, and democracy. Realism was introduced by Thucydides in his account of ancient Greek and their political strategy of going to war, dominating the enemy and subjecting another state to your rule. Thucydides elaborated his account through detailing the war between the Athenians and the Menos. A realist proponent such as Thomas Hobbes believes that human nature is inherently selfish. Liberalism oppositely argues that human nature is inherently altruistic and selfless. The League of Nations, formed under the 14-point speech of Woodrow Wilson, who was the United States of America's president at the time, practiced realism. The international system was assumed to be comprising of independent states who had a quest for world domination. The balance of power in global politics was considered to be a hierarchy. Superpower states such as the United States of America determined international policy for the rest of the world. The creation of the League of Nations was after the occurrence of World War I. However, after its failure of preventing further wars and also its failure of recruiting enough member states, this resulted in its dissolution. In place of it, the United Nations was formed in 1945, which currently has 193 member states. It was created after World War II. Liberalism entered international politics in this manner, as the United Nations proposed a liberal order, where states would be treated equally in the international system, giving states sovereignty in their internal affairs and enforcing human rights. and other declarations, the Geneva Convention, and globally agreed upon goals, such as the Millennium Development Goals and now Sustainable Development Goals. One may wonder then what this has to do with attaining individual happiness. Without examining political ideologies, we ignore our way of life in its entirety. Realism and liberalism are the most traditional political ideologies which deal with mostly only political issues such as the state, the military, and war. More ideologies that are politically economic in nature were a necessity in governing states. The first one was mercantilism in the 19th century to the earlier periods of the 20th century. The economy was under the command system, and the economy existed for the purposes of increasing the wealth of the nation and its power. In these times, Britain was the world leader, obtaining its wealth through expanding its operations to other nations, mostly developing ones, for natural resources and cheap labor through colonization and importing its profits to its mother country in order to stay at the top politically and economically. It practiced the component of mercantilism called protectionism, which comprised of import substitution and export promotion. This meant that instead of importing goods from other nations, it created a wider market internally and depended on itself for goods and services. It also exported its own goods and services to other nations. This saw to it that its currency was stronger in the international political and economic system. In 1944, the Bretton Woods institutions were formed, following the 1929 Great Depression. These international financial institutions were the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization, which was at the time of its creation called the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. The international economic system now ran on economic liberalism, which had two different modes of operations, such as orthodox liberal, its proponents being Friedrich von Hayek in his book The Road to Serfdom, and the other mode being heterodox liberal, whose main component was John Maynard Keynes. The orthodox liberal believed individuals and businesses could operate freely without government or state intervention in the economic affairs of the state, while the heterodox liberal believed that government intervention in the market is necessary to influence demand and supply, especially in terms of unemployment, but also for circumstances beyond human control, such as natural disasters. John Maynard Keynes' model was the first to be tried. Despite minor differences within the ideology itself, economic liberalism advocated for free markets, ownership of property and enterprise, and competition, while to individuals it meant free choices and preferences. Economic liberalism is rooted in the economic ideology of capitalism, whose founding father was Adam Smith. Economic liberalism perpetrated throughout the world and is still in existence in its guise of neoliberalism, whereas orthodox liberal has replaced heterodox liberal. Marxism has been a contending ideology against capitalism. It stemmed from Karl Marx and Engels. Marx argued that the elite class, which he referred to as the bourgeoisie, were oppressing the working low class, which he referred to as the proletariat. She claimed that the elite class, who were owners of capital, were exploiting the working class by paying them low wages, although working under harsh conditions, and that if the working class complained, they were easily disposable and replaced. His classic work is called The Communist Manifesto, and he concluded that in the end, the working class will bring about a revolution by rising up to the elites and taking over the means of production where they would compensate each other equally and fairly. Structuralism bears the resemblance of Marxism. It is, however, a description of Marxism propagated globally about how transnational corporations are rent-seeking and profit-seeking, plundering resources where they've expanded their operations, exploiting host countries' resources and cheap labor, then transferring profits to their mother country. This then results in underdevelopment in the host countries where they have invaded. David Wallerstein created the world systems theory to easily elaborate this process, whereby he refers to the core, semi-periphery, and periphery. The core states being the developed countries, the semi-periphery states being emerging markets, and the periphery being the developing nations. As I have aforementioned, political ideologies extend to forms of rule such as theocracy, which refers to rule by religion, democracy, the rule of the people, for the people, and by the people, military rule, military takeovers of regimes through coup d'etat, and the administration being run by the military, and autocracy, a rule by a single individual who has power over the whole state, such as fascism and dictatorship. Although there are many forms of rule, the creation of intergovernmental organizations saw to it that the majority of states transition to democracy through waves. Democracy provided individuals with the freedom to choose who led them through free and fair elections. Individuals were also awarded with freedom of speech, press, association, choice, human rights, and etc. However, although individuals have gained emancipation to be who they were destined to be or to become whomever they want to be, their freedom is restricted by forces beyond their control, such as being born in a poor household and not having to access sufficient education to become employable. Although individuals are spoiled for choices in choosing their leader, minorities who elect an alternative feel excluded from political participation if the leader voted by the majority triumphs and takes over the presidential office. With cosmopolitanism on the rise, non-racialism, multiculturalism, employment equity, social justice, and universal values, beliefs, and morals, one would think society resembles social cohesion, but society is divided now more than ever. It's not that the triumph of democracy worldwide was not a success. The problem is that it did not do away with the existence of political ideologies. People subscribe to different political views and never tend to present a united front. Most individuals have based their lives on politics. They are rebellious and easily destructive, disturbing a country's state of affairs through mass actions such as looting, riots, and protests. Although some reasons for such actions are not valid, some are issues such as poor service delivery, poor standards of living, unemployment, corruption, discrimination, and inaction by authorities towards violence are among others that are valid reasons to protest. By now, I hope one can deduce how political ideologies play a part in our lives, which determines our overall state of happiness. For ease of analysis, political scientists in the West have divided the schools of thought in our political lives into two, the left wing and the right wing. The left wing believes in the economic equality, inclusion, the practice of employment equity, non-discrimination based on tradition, language, ethnicity, beliefs, and values. Furthermore, the left wing advocates for political representation for minorities, the treatment of everyone with equal respect and concern, the equality of outcomes, a welfare state which caters for the poor through grants from government revenue obtained through taxes. The right wing advocates for the equality of opportunity instead of outcomes, limited role of the state in individuals' private affairs, less tax rates, competition, and the trickle-down economy instead of a welfare state. The right wing believes it's unfair for others to bear the consequences of others' misfortunes. More political ideologies emerged in today's era as society progressed. Society's progress widened the scope of divisions in society. Individuals who shared the same beliefs or who were more the same formed interest groups to advance their cause. Such groups included environmentalists, animal protection, protection of refugees, Doctors Without Borders, and to other extremes, such as enforcing laws that accommodate LGBTQI, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, transsexual, and intersexual communities' rights to be recognized, accepted, and respected by society. Through social media, the aggression of these societal divisions were witnessed through trolls who were mostly right-wing, cyberbullying the left-wingers, calling them entitled and social justice warriors, while the left-wing countered by calling them bigots. These events were escalating in the year 2016 and 2017, respectively. It caused many analysts to brand the situation as identity politics, whereas as an individual you had to identify yourself with a certain group and then play power politics with other groups as your opponents for more attention and being at the top of the agenda setting of your country's legislation. Many issues have caused political turmoil in countries all around the world, such as human trafficking, gender-based violence, guerrilla warfare, illegal immigration, the arms race, humanitarian crisis, poverty, crime, terrorist attacks, and more. My intention in outlaying these current conditions in the state of the world is not an attempt to draw sympathy from the readers, but rather to bring attention to the direct opposite of the positive progression of humanity. The manner in which political ideologies and their usage and utilization in our individual lives can be categorized into three groups: rigid believers, shape-shifting believers, and non-adapters, apolitical. Rigid believers hold steady in their political beliefs and values no matter the changing nature of the political environment in their respective countries. For example, an individual would stick to their philosophy of life, such as holding education in the highest regard and believing it to be the ultimate way of life, to be educated and marketable to hiring companies. Although personally having been unemployed ever since they have graduated, with the job market not requiring his type of skill and government awarding funds to entrepreneurs and small businesses. Instead of adjusting to these changing conditions, like gaining entrepreneurial experience, the individual would rather consider receiving more education until their degree is only useful in university faculties, which are already overcrowded with academics and are not considering employing more, while the individual is simply shrugged off by organizations and corporations as overqualified for any position. A more political example of a rigid believer is an individual who, let's say, believes in the sanctity of marriage being between a man and a woman instead of same-sex marriage. Such an individual, if employed in the public sector such as Home Affairs, would use their position to prevent gay couples receiving a marital certificate by misplacing documents, mishandling their application, or ultimately downright refuse them any attention or service, confronting them and asserting his or her authority over them. Such has been witnessed in many occasions where the LGBTQI community would file a class action suit against the state that refuses to recognize their rights. A shapeshifter is an individual who changes their political views every time their chosen political view fails them. For instance, a person may believe in low tax rates or taxation at all, as they feel the financial pinch on their salary every month, but upon retrenchment or other reasons that causes them to lose their jobs, they change their political views to high tax rates, as they are now dependent on the extended and of the welfare state in terms of grants. Such individuals only advocate for political views that benefit them personally. Sometimes they use eclectic, mixed ideologies. They utilize a factor in one ideology and another factor from another ideology, despite such ideologies being complete opposites. As long as each ideology has a property they value, they will choose it. Non-adapters are mostly apolitical. They consider politics to be a dirty game which brings devastation to those at the other end of the spectrum, such as the ordinary citizen. They rarely state their political views and often claim ignorance every time they are asked about their opinions in political matters. Such individuals, however, are not blind to the matters of injustice. They believe that by taking action against unfairness and maltreatment of a certain individual or group does not equate to them being political, but rather being humanist. However, it matters not as to which category you fall under. As an individual, you should strive to transcend man-made ideologies, as they all have their shortcomings, disadvantages, and limitations. To attain a level of happiness that makes life worth living, one must first learn to tolerate themselves. How you describe yourself should uniquely portray you as different from others. Subscribing to ideologies should not dictate your social interactions, whom you should consider engaging with, whom you should ignore, and even whom you should argue and fight with. Social media has made it possible for people all over the world to share their ideas and promote their beliefs online. And at first glance, this may appear as a great thing until you realize how individuals degrade others because of thinking differently from them. Others are rarely fully conscious when they post, and with society becoming more sensitive, their posts are brought to light in the present day, costing them their jobs, societal judgment and condemnation, and any prospects of making a living. Such a reality is dangerous, and it is unlikely that it would get any better anytime soon. What individuals are only left with is being vigilant and precautious of their own behavior online and offline. No matter how bad things are or how you perceive them to be bad, no matter where you live, the conditions you were born in, and your current situation, if you are dissatisfied and have made your heart content to hopelessness, there is a way to true happiness for everyone. It does not require you to associate yourself with a group for a sense of belonging or acceptance. It does not require you to be wealthy. It does not require you to enslave yourself to social media and materialism. What it only requires is for you to love yourself wholeheartedly. Let's further examine the human condition in the 21st century and how we can tackle world or personal issues that would permit ourselves to love ourselves unconditionally. The journey of life. We all believe the journey of our lives ends when we die. Or do we? Religious and philosophical fanatics believe otherwise. Christians, for instance, believe that when we die, our souls either go to heaven or hell, depending on how we lived our lives while we were on earth. They believe that if one sticks to the Bible commandments, has faith, believes, and is devoted and committed to God, goes to church every Sunday, avoids immoral activities, then he or she has a higher probability of being allowed in heaven. Buddhists, on the other hand, believe in transcendence, discarding one's interest of the modern world and its materialistic culture and the practice of meditation. They believe that when one dies, they go to a place called nirvana, a place filled with eternal bliss, abundance, joy, and peace. The question of the afterlife has a significant impact in how we live our lives on earth. It determines how we treat others, as the philosophical golden rule, which has been globally adopted, is treat others as you would like to be treated. Not only does it shape how we act in the outside world, but also inwardly, such as how we treat our bodies, guiding what we eat and the type of activities we engage in. However, despite the existence of such life guides, such as the Bible, other people persist to be pessimistic and nihilistic. This means they do not believe in anything. They do not see the meaning of life. They often spend their lives in leisure, abusing substances, and end up wallowing in poverty. It is debatable whether if the journey of life begins at conception, but I would like to begin it at birth. This is because a person at this stage is fully developed and has been introduced to the outside world as they have spent the 9 months of their fetal development stage in their mother's womb. As they grow up, they learn how to speak by picking up audible voices and speech from those that surround them, in most cases from their families. By the time they reach the ages of 3 to 5, they already know how to talk, walk, take a dump on their own, and listening to the commands of the grown-ups. This particular stage is important as it presents an opportunity for them to learn right from wrong. In most cases, such opportunities are found in how they treat objects that surround them. This stage is for exploration. The child has infinite possibilities and potential. They often have an urge to develop their own concept of texture as a component of perception. They will, through trial and error, learn on what is socially acceptable behavior by attempting to engage themselves with the objects around them, such as opening rugs, breaking glasses, smear lipstick on the wall, or even eat it, putting their hands on the stove, and etc. Psychology claims that the manner in which children decide what is okay and not okay to do depends on their parents' reaction to their actions or behavior. This is a system of reward and punishment. If they do what is unacceptable, they are reprimanded by their parents or other adults. In the olden days, they would receive a beating. Some still do, regardless of the condemnation of such a practice by the majority of governments in most countries. Here the children are introduced to another perception, physical pain. Therefore, they cease to perform activities that will produce this feeling. If they are well behaved, parents offer them treats, for example, sweets, and this produces joy. Children then avoid bad behavior and opt for good, which is a positive aspect in their stage of maturity. From the ages of 5 to 12, they begin to socialize with peers, be it from the playground, family trips, school, and other social gatherings. Here they practice what they have learned at home. If they experience violence in their home, they tend to be rebellious, troublesome, and bully other kids. They also tend to be naughty and influence others to behave the way they do. This, of course, causes conflict between parents. When the parents of the victim lay complaints to the parents of the perpetrator, it is really important for parents to understand their own personality, defensive mechanism, stubbornness, and overprotectiveness of their infants. This is because instead of teaching and enforcing discipline on their kids, they would rather shield them from the world. This creates dependence later in life as their kids do not properly adapt to adulthood. It is also a major contributor to juvenile delinquency. Parents need to realize that they will not be there forever and that their kids will have to someday learn to stand on their own. Such kids end up becoming college dropouts, acquaint themselves with computer games, and settle their entire life to living in their parents' basement. The above-mentioned trajectory should be noted in how it influences an individual's growth stage in the ages 12 to 21. Under normal circumstances, 90% of a person's life is spent in school from the ages 12 to 18. This, of course, not only including school attendance, but engaging with school activities at home in terms of assignments and homework. From 18 to 21, the individual either opts to obtain further education at a higher learning institution of their choice or settle on a minimum wage paying job, menial labor, or any other occupation that requires the most basic skills acquired from high school, such as arithmetic, in retail stores, cashiers, bookkeeping, salesperson, or even hard labor in construction companies of different sorts. From 12 to 18, the individual is introduced to the knowledge that prepares them for adulthood, such as how to live the best life, planning for the future, keeping healthy, and etc. In the subject of life orientation, being enlightened about human reproduction in life sciences, solving complex problems in mathematics, financial literacy in business studies and accounting, multiculturalism, travel, monuments, and diversity in tourism and history, learning the world around them and how nature works in geography, and many other lessons emanating from whichever subject the individual chooses as per their interest of their parents' recommendation and guidance. Other kids extend their understanding of love by being in relationships, experience their first heartbreak probably, while others learn the meaning of friendship and others the importance of education in determining one's future. From the age of 21 upwards, most individuals enter the job market. Others subject themselves to a life of partying and irresponsibility, deluded by temporary pleasure and believing they have more time on their hands. Such individuals spend more time in colleges than necessary. They never graduate on record time if they ever do graduate. Arguably, we can all agree that such is justified as they will not have another chance or freedom to explore without boundaries, as the life awaiting them out the college premises is full of responsibility, accountability, and seriousness. We may not then contend that college presents the opportunity for them to do away with all of their urges, so they can adjust properly to real life after they have completed their studies. This is because we have often noticed real old people who yearned for their younger days because they did not experience the joy of their youth. Such people drink themselves to death in clubs and bars. Their kids grow up under unstable conditions and experience domestic violence whenever Daddy returns home drunk. If you are a fan of South Park, the satirical comedic cartoon series, you may recall an episode from an earlier season when Mr. Chef told the young four boys, Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Eric, whom the series is focused on, that there is a time and place for everything, and it's called college. Indeed, some individuals even find the love of their life while pursuing their college degrees. However, during this period of growth, there is a lot of uncertainty, and things can easily get out of hand. For instance, students lie to their parents about their academic progress while wasting their parents' money, and they keep on chasing the wind. Parents end up in huge debt, or the students themselves incur debt from student loans that seek repayment while they barely pass their second semester in 7 years. However, not everything is as bad as it seems. It is all about how an individual deals with culture shock. If an individual truly wishes to be happy while pursuing their dream, self-discipline, having a strict schedule, being organized, being neat and clean, taking yourself serious, realizing that you matter and you have a lot to offer the world, make a significant contribution to your higher learning institution by joining organizations that perform social responsibility, befriend those who share the same goals as you, recognize your own vulnerability in succumbing to negative worldly temptations, have a diary or journal to scribble on, in other words, converse with yourself more than you converse with others, no matter how important you hold the presence of others in your life. This life journey is about you, and all you have to do at the end of the day, you will have to deal with yourself. Do not realize this when you are left on your own in trouble with all your friends having deserted you. As the saying goes, when days are dark, friends are few. It is a well-known fact that college is a place of discovery and exploration. But what are you exploring on? How to waste money getting drunk, how to contract different strands of sexually transmitted diseases, how to become a quitter and a dropout with no prospects for the near future? Or are you discovering your capabilities, skills, how to be efficient and resourceful, how to be an important individual in your society? Due to the availability of a vast amount of information, is the purpose not to explore different views about the meaning of life, learning how to be financially independent, and preparing yourself to make the world a better place for your kids and the next generation in general? Consider this and meditate on it. As human beings, we all possess faults and mistakes. No one is flawless and perfect, even if they seem to be. This, of course, is why you should always keep track of your steps, decisions, and actions you take. The only way to do this is to plan your next move. Have a board written in big letters on what you should accomplish each day, be it reading a chapter for an upcoming semester test or exam, forming and attending a study group, visiting your lecturer for a consultation to gain more insight on what you do not understand, eat healthily, exercise. For leisure, avoid binging series on the internet. Rather watch a single episode. Watch the news to keep track of the world around you and to be informative. Sometimes we are deceived by our perceptions on what truly matters. We succumb to peer pressure as a result of our longing to belong. The world around us moves so fast and we want to be a part of it. Our impulses take over our minds. We want to escape loneliness and boredom. The idea of being free blinds us, causing us to take quick actions without considering the consequences. All we care about at that moment is instant gratification, the adrenaline rush, relaxation, and fun. This, of course, isn't wrong. Neither should you feel guilty about it. What matters is how you manage your manic episodes. It all relies on self-regulation. In order for you to be happy and rejoice as a college student, you have to deserve it. Only go out after having received your results with a good mark or grade. In this way, it serves as a positive reinforcement. As an employee, if you have performed better and earned the company more profits, you get a promotion or other compensation appraisals, such as a bonus and being awarded as the employee of the month. You then decide to spoil your family or buy yourself nice things. However, as a student, you can only go as far as being honored as a merit student and being welcomed as a member for the Golden Key Society, or whichever society a college may possess for academic exceptional performing students. Therefore, this warrants spoiling yourself too. However, the journey of life does not end at college. Although others may decide to pursue a career in academia and forever reside in college, others go out to the real world to try get jobs or create their own businesses. Others even become rebellious and spend the rest of their lives unlearning everything they were taught. They often call themselves enlightened or woke. Such individuals either believe in self-education or believe that institutional education brainwashes people, introduces individuals to conformity instead of intelligence, creativity, and innovation. Although some of them end up becoming successful businessmen or women by venturing in technology, most of them give up trying to get a better life. By abandoning institutional education, they free themselves from occupational profession and specialization, becoming the jack of all trades but a master of none. They interest those they meet by their vast knowledge about every subject, incoherently structuring an argument through a set of unrelated facts and form conspiracy theories. They tend to drink and smoke a lot, then speak about everything, from government deceptions to cosmology, spiritual science, and hidden biblical truths. From an educationally trained eye, one could realize their disorganization, self-destructive nature, and their detachment from reality. Even those with interest in such people, they eventually grow weary of them and eventually desert them. It is not that they are entirely useless, but rather that they haven't found a way to monetize themselves or make themselves financially viable. For as long as you are interested in them, you unconsciously offer them comfortability under your roof, provide food for them, and in extreme cases, even give them money. You do not realize their leeching tendencies until someone wiser than you points it out to the woke masses. I know how difficult life can get sometimes. You find yourself having to suppress your depressive state through mind-altering substances, although most of the time you appear happy on the outside, but to those you consider important in your life, you reveal your true feelings to. You voice out how you have no hope for the future and of ever being successful. You count the years that have gone by, how aging has stolen your youth and your potential, what you could have done earlier in life have you been as informed as you are now. You let them know how you wasted the opportunities that life presented you and that you sometimes wonder if it would even matter if you were dead. You possess intellect and great knowledge, but somehow you can't seem to make it work for you. You couldn't possibly settle for a menial job because it is an insult to your character. But remember this, we all have to start somewhere. There is a saying that goes, the graveyard is filled with people who had a great potential to contribute something positive to the world. You hope you are not doomed to be a part of that statistic. No matter which motivational book you read which presents itself as a guide to success, you can't seem to apply its lessons to your own life, or you have attempted and the results have been rather disappointing and fruitless. You do not lack the money, a plan, or any means to be successful. What you lack is discipline. Take that job. Yes, you went to college, or you believe that you are educated beyond it. Pride won't get you anywhere. Make your goal realizable by taking action. Since self-education is valued highly by you, teach yourself the value of saving and investing. Accept the lowly salary or wage you receive. Take care of your personal necessities. Save the disposable income for your dream. Patience is a virtue. It matters not how old you are, how your peers are doing in life. Do not envy anyone. Envy yourself. Become a better person than you were yesterday. Use your knowledge, skills, and talents to solve problems presented to you, instead of utilizing them to identify what's wrong with life with pessimistic tendencies when coming to offering solutions. Learn to live with others. You need a base. If you decide to be an entrepreneur, you will need support from those around you. Do not be a mean person. Learn to take criticism without retaliating or perceiving it as an attack or offense to your character and personality. Write down your soft skills and hard skills. Furthermore, write down your personal limitations and be determined to improve on them. Talk is cheap. This has been the universal code that can't be traced back to its original source, but it is valid, verifiable, and true. Develop a sense of agency. Don't worry too much about your age, because success doesn't care about how old you are. However, this does not equate to being comfortable living in unbearable conditions. Do not overwhelm yourself with anticipations and expectations. You got this. The journey of life is not a straight path. It is a rocky path with twists and turns. Some philosophers and life coaches even believe that the point of life is to overcome adversity and challenges. By overcoming challenges, we become stronger individuals, ready and prepared to face the next one, confident, holding ourselves in high esteem, proactive, and optimistic about the future. Whenever something bad happens, we look for the goodness that comes out of it and limit the effect and spread caused by its devastation. No matter which way you look at it, how educated you are, life is incomprehensible and unpredictable. You might have settled on a well-paying job with a loving wife and happy kids today, and you might lose it all tomorrow. You may be retrenched with no retirement package, fall on a bandwagon of drinking due to unemployment, getting a divorce with an approved full child custody in favor of your ex-wife, and losing all your properties and belongings due to bank repossessions, and end up homeless at the age of 40. You may receive a retirement package or pension when you are older, believing you have lived a fulfilling life, and just when you get comfortable, lose all of your money in bad investments, stock market shutdowns, or scams. You may have a successful business today and find yourself in jail with nothing tomorrow due to your business having broken government regulations or having machinery that malfunctioned, killed and injured your workers, while you were unaware of such a likelihood because of cooked books and lies from your employees and other members, or all of them in your board of directors. You may have not taken life seriously because you were comfortable mooching off mom and daddy's wealth, inherited their house, and lose the house because of natural disasters, wildfires, floods, and etc. You may also be a well-paid public figure and say something politically or religiously sensitive on national television, international television, radio interview, or social media, be condemned by the public, ultimately end up fired with no hope of ever being on air again. What all these categories and scenarios present is that there is no way of remaining comfortable in life. Life is forever dynamic, shape-shifting and changing. Keeping up, adapting and catching up with life is simply not enough. An individual should look at the world at an individual level, family level, societal level, national level, and global level. At the age of information technology, where almost all information is made available, cheaper and free, claiming ignorance is no excuse, and that shall consequently bear you the brunt of responsibility of a complex problem you would fail to comprehend, let alone deal with it, but which is the ultimate determiner of how your life turns out. Extreme precaution and vigilance is required. This does not mean being paranoid about the end of the world, mistrusting those who are faithful to you, being insecure or living your life in fear. It simply means have pure intentions and make others aware that you expect the same from them, no matter what wrong they have done, which may upset you. Be approachable, live in the now, pay attention to the meaning of words uttered by those you live with and work with, and the feelings of others. Your own instincts will never fail you. Trust them. Whenever you feel uncertain about a situation, do not shrug it off. Investigate it. What everything boils down to when it comes to the journey of life is that in order for one to fully appreciate it, they have to be present in it. This does not mean being physically available, but also having your mind present at all times. Some decisions we make are mostly the result of absent-mindedness. Sometimes we make stupid decisions because we want to escape our reality just a bit. We avoid dealing with issues that emotionally and psychologically affect us by focusing on petty matters. This ends up causing us irreversible depression, as everything we have built inside us wants to come out and we are too weak to handle it or to keep suppressing it. We end up being slaves of pharmaceutical companies and pills, with frequent consultations with psychiatrists for the rest of our lives. Sometimes we will recognize our dependence, develop a stigma that we are different, not normal, and will never get any better. This is the reason most people facing depression, despite it being treated or not, end up with suicidal ideation and others acting on it. As an individual, you may sometimes fall in a deep trance of self-inquisitions, asking yourself why you exist, what is the matter of life and its purpose, and also why you were even born. These thoughts can naturally disappear if you are genuinely happy and content about your own life. However, this does not have shortcuts. Shortcuts are only effective for a short period of time. They don't even last for the whole day. You tend to be happy for that moment and end up regretting the stupidity of the actions you have taken without thinking. Whisper to yourself every day that you matter, that you have a purpose, and if life isn't going the way you expected or if you are facing delays, remain positive. There is a reason you are where you are now. You have faced problems and issues before and overcame them. Why should the one you are facing now be any different? You are a conqueror and the ruler of your own personal kingdom. The journey of life is never over as long as you breathe and you are still a resident of Earth. Always remain active. Laziness is a thief of everything great about you. Smile. Self-introspection. We have all experienced moments in our lives that made us question ourselves, our own path and direction in life. It could be that we find ourselves in a very miserable circumstance. Watched an inspiring video on YouTube about a survivor who has passed through a similar circumstance, realized what we weren't doing, what they did, which proved to be positive in alleviating their condition. We then looked into ourselves, identified everything wrong we were doing consistently, and also the good things we avoided or were not aware of, but which could nonetheless help us. We then began a journey towards self-improvement. As unorthodox as it may seem, self-introspection is all about reassessing yourself, your personality, attributes, motivation, goals, your position in society, your abilities and capabilities, and looking for creative, effective ways of improving yourself. One of the simplest ways of assessing yourself, which business studies people may be acquainted with, is through drawing a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Such an analysis can help make your goals manageable. You may be interested in starting your own business. However, you are fresh out of school with no knowledge of how to run a successful enterprise, how to enter the market, and how the market operates. Having done business studies and accounting at school, you only possess basic knowledge, which does not help you in comprehending business in the real world. You have been saving up for your enterprise, and your parents are willing to fund you. You have taught yourself how to sew, and you want your business's aim and objective to be about selling clothing for all different seasons that occur in a year. Now, when conducting a SWOT analysis of your case, you list your strengths as possessing capital, having basic knowledge of business which may work in your favor, your motivation and willingness to work both as an employer and employee of your enterprise. You then list your weaknesses, lack of knowledge on how to get your business registered and become legal, lack of human resources, labor, having to recruit and teach your employees how to sew, your specific design, which is time consuming and costly, lack of suppliers of your desired material, no warehouse or premises for your business to operate under. In order to make up for your weaknesses, you then keep your ear to the ground in search of opportunities. Whenever an opportunity presents itself, such as master classes for entrepreneurs, you attend the session and engage. You then find people who are in the same industry who then provide you with the necessary information on how to rent property in a profitable marketplace like the mall. You also receive helpful information on how to create your own brand, logo, how to license, copyright, and patent your work as your own intellectual property, and also how to register your business. Other opportunities present themselves, such as retail stores developing interest in your product, and you now have a legit platform and consistent orders. However, as much as opportunities could make up for your weaknesses, threats also exist, which could challenge your strengths. As an entrepreneur specializing in clothing, you may tend to find out that the market is very competitive and that consumers stick to labels and brands they are familiar with. After having spent your capital on renting a premise, hiring staff, and buying your material, you may realize that you have to curb your selling price at a certain level in order to break even and make profit if retailers find your price to be unreasonable. You may have to cut it, which could result in losses. It would then depend on how strong your motivation is as your strength to withstand the loss. Look for other opportunities to make your brand familiar, such as advertising it on social media and mainstream media in general. A SWOT analysis is not an assurance that everything will go accordingly. Life is unpredictable, as I have noted, but it does, however, make life more simple and comprehensible. It can also make you realize issues and errors in your plan you were unaware of, and you are at least clued about what you are getting yourself into than to blindly attempt something and fail. You may already have gotten yourself in a predicament without having been proactive before acting. This does not mean there is no hope for rectifying things. At any moment in the process, you can always minimize the damage done, take a few steps back, revert back and reanalyze the situation according to the circumstance and the sequence of actions you took, which rendered you where you find yourself. You can draw up a timeline, recall every step you took and its results. This will help you formulate informed solutions rather than continuing further by merely patching temporary band-aids that never last. It is okay to start over. Start doing. I'm sure we are all quite familiar with friends who talk up a storm. Sometimes we even pick up the habit ourselves. To start doing does not mean to act without thinking. Planning your life accordingly does not also mean you will be able to execute your plan successfully without any hiccups, disturbances, and errors on the way. You are most likely to be derailed from any mission, objective, aim, and goal you seek to achieve, either by your own choices or by circumstances that introduce themselves into our lives uninvited. To build the habit of doing, no matter how small, helps us to at least have something solid to present, be confident about, and to assure ourselves about the purpose we serve in life. Most people are unhappy. I do. Wake up only to eat, drink to feel merry, and go back to sleep. They believe time is on their side. Although being positive and optimistic in your attitude, approach, and the speeches you dish out to those closest to you in place of being negative and pessimistic about the future can be quite convincing to them, it is only when they see your utterances manifest and materialize tangibly that you can have people really believe your legitimate intent on bettering yourself. But why does this matter? Who cares what people think, right? Right. But if that was such a great philosophy to live by, you would be living alone, isolated from the whole world. To acquaint yourself with them and build relations with them, you will need to care what they think. Reciprocity keeps relationships growing stronger. Caring about the effect of your actions on those around you makes you human. And if so, then you are not really human without appreciating the existence of others and the role they play in your life. The intensity of your dependence on others could differ in relation to your dependence on yourself. It is really important that you actually get your act together and not pretend to do so in order to sustain an illusion in the minds of those who help you financially just to keep being a burden on them. Although we are unaware of it, most of the time the source of our unhappiness is not our destitution at a particular period in our lives, but rather our failure to challenge our situations. We build a vocabulary of excuses not to do anything suggestible to remedy out our conditions. We can't find a job because we lack experience, didn't finish school, lack the necessary resources to travel on a daily basis, are not presented with enough job options or opportunities in our own location, and etc. We lack the enthusiasm of doing what could benefit us greatly. Just because when one was a child, they learned on a trial and error basis, they concluded that if a result produced a negative outcome, then the action was an error, which needed to not be repeated. We therefore still apply such an immature logic in our adulthood. We apply for jobs, and if the outcome is negative, receiving a rejection, we stop applying completely. As adults, our understanding of the mechanism of life should not be that of a 7-year-old. Indeed, a rejected job application requires changed behavior, but how? Surely not by giving up on applying for available vacancies. It merely requires one to reassess themselves and what could have went wrong in their application. Could their curriculum vitae have been the reason? Perhaps it was poorly and unprofessionally written. Could it be that they were not fit for that particular job? In that case, should they not then build up their motivation to apply for vacancies they know that they are most suitable for? Should they not perhaps ask for assistance to teach themselves on how to write up a better and attractive CV? You could have the greatest thoughts, ideas, and possess insurmountable intellect, but without an effective way of conveying it to the outside world, you are bound to live a miserable life. There are many ways one could start doing. By doing, I do not only refer to executing your plans, I also mean the activity of planning in itself. Whatever you do, just make sure you have done something worthwhile. This does not include cooking, cleaning, washing dishes, or clothes. However, these particular activities are regarded as chores and are mandatory. Debating yourself and your level of laziness in terms of what you can leave out from them is completely out of the question, as I will later demonstrate why. It also does not refer to meeting friends, going to the mall, performing a recreational activity, and such. What I am referring to are aspects such as professional reading, studying, working if self-employed, become productive, writing down your ideas, completing what you have scheduled, invent or be innovative, and anything else that will improve your reasoning, thinking, problem solving, aptitude, personality, intellect, and other attitudes and attributes which need enhancement for one to make it in life and for one to be well prepared for the opportunities that life may present at any given moment. Others may argue that all work and no play makes one dull, which is indeed true. This is why I have only stated that one may at least have done something beneficial to one's life, no matter how small the work they put in, no matter how long or short it takes for them to feel satisfied about what they have done. That is important for a day. What matters is that they have done something. This, of course, if done every day, in the midst of other activities they engage in, their attitude towards the idea of working on something important at least for a specific time in a day would improve for the better. In fact, if practiced enough, doing an important activity daily would become second nature while improving their lives. Life should be about fun, but then again, nobody ever said you can never derive fun from doing something you love. Therefore, learn to love doing what would benefit you for now and for the future. If you have a dream of being a world-class painter, start saving for your art gallery, start perfecting your craft. If you are interested in architecture, start collecting your pencils and rulers. Make sure you are fully loaded with long sheets and whiteboards. Start learning how to measure. Start learning how to draw intricate buildings. If you want to become a famous writer or author, start reading books for inspiration. Make sure a day doesn't go by without you having not read anything. Practice your art, learning by doing, or what in the academy is called anesthetics, is a great method for one to educate themselves and acquire lucrative skills. Although you may already possess institutional education, perfecting your craft would require you to be personally involved in your own growth on a daily basis, even after school. Come to think of it, that's how schools distinguish the highly exceptional kids from the average. Kids who are very dependent on their teachers for lessons barely ever outperform or outclass those who learn by themselves in their homes after school. The philosophy of start doing should be a compulsory lesson or advice that every motivational speaker adopts, installs in their vocabulary, and presents to the public to go along with the rest of the advice they deliver in their presentations. This should also not only be about intrinsic values, because doing anything to many motivational speakers has less to do with having feasible, manageable, and tangible plan, but rather has to do with being masquerading as an activity simply because of the command that the motivational speaker evokes, which bears no physically demonstrated activity. For example, quotes such as believe in yourself and success is a mindset. Someone who generally cares about your self-improvement would take the time to learn what kind of a person you are without generalizing a crowd so that he can bamboozle them out of their money. His or her advice would resonate with your situation, and it would be specific, unique, and tailored to your specific problem or issue at hand. Lastly, the type of advice that the individual would give would also be effective in solving your problems. As an advice to my reader, I suggest you take a very closer look before attending seminars that promise you that you are going to get rich quick. As much as you need to start doing, this does not imply you should blindly accept what is presented to you as reality without scrutinizing it. In fact, to be highly vigilant is to be active in and of itself. Meditation. Meditation is often associated with Buddhism and as originating from Tibet. However, many people treat meditation as a byproduct accompanying their daily exercise and healthy eating lifestyles. Does meditation bring more happiness to one's life? There are many benefits produced by this activity. Meditation benefits an individual with level-headedness, peace, patience, perseverance, appreciation of nature, and less anxiety. If you are a spiritual fanatic, you may even have come across readings of people claiming that meditation enabled one to transcend beyond human limitations. Transcendence in this case means that one is able to master their own circumstances, maturing in dealing with situations that are unsettling, and also having a thicker skin to handle whatever life throws at them. Spirit science also claims that if one has mastered the art of meditation, they can even levitate, float in the air with their body energy and aura concentrated on keeping them up. Buddhists speak of activating one's chakras, which they claim are located in one's backbone, spine, which takes years of practice and meditation, but which brings spiritual bliss and enlightenment. Meditation is one of the few ways one can explore themselves and their world using their vivid imagination and the creativity of their brains without sinking themselves into the ocean of the free market and materialism. There are many ways to meditate. Some people simply cross their legs together while sitting on a mat or floor with their hands divided and resting on their knees, eyes closed, and stay in that position for a considerable amount of time. Some people believe that one can witness an out-of-body experience by meditating while lying in bed, facing up at the roof or ceiling, and astral project. Astral projection in spirit science is when your soul leaves your body to explore. Your soul can go to any place as long as you are in full control of it. You simply imagine the place and you are there. You are, however, not dead. There exists a silver cord, a chain which connects your soul to your body, and this chain only breaks or is disconnected if you are dead. But when astral projecting, the chain remains tagged until you return to your physical body. What is the point of this information about meditation? Well, simply because we need to understand our urges and impulses as people, and the only way to do so is if we are able to control them. Controlling them would make it easier to realize what is important to do and what is not worth pursuing. What we call perception, our five senses, or six if you were born gifted in one or the other with extrasensory perceptions: the mouth, eyes, ears, nose, and texture or touch, become overwhelmed when facing the real world. There is so much going on to pick our attention every second that it's easy to choose wrongly and regret your decision after the damage is done. But with meditation, it becomes easy to focus and concentrate on yourself in the midst of confusion. Such self-control, when exhibited, is quite impressive as one makes logical decisions, while the majority would attempt to distort his or her decision-making capabilities. Meditation is not a rule, but it requires discipline. You need to make sure that the environment surrounding you or the environment you find yourself in when you want to perform meditation is quiet without any likelihood to be distracted. Furthermore, ensure that you have the willpower to sustain the duration which the meditation is supposed to last. If you have a problem with time, then set an alarm. Perform the meditation and remain in that same position without moving before the alarm clock strikes at the time you have indicated when setting it up. Well, of course, we could also add that scientifically, chemicals are released from your brain called dopamine, which cause happiness from meditation, but that is rather rudimentary at this point. The author is more concerned rather with genuine actions, behaviors, practices, activities, consistent and temporary execution of disciplined methods and strategies that last a lifetime, that are guaranteed in bringing happiness and make life bearable for everyone. This is not one of those books you get to read for the advice that it has and then toss it aside. Its value is priceless. Like the Bible, it provides anecdotes and lessons, offers valid, sensible, sound, and practical ideas in leading a good life without necessarily sounding preachy or sounding like an instruction manual. Competence. No one could possibly stress this enough due to its utmost importance. It is the ultimate aspect and attribute one could possess. Sometimes it is not what you know, but how you present yourself. Think about it. Would a professionally dressed businessman ever give a fraction of his attention and interest in what a beggar on the street has to say? No matter how intelligent that person is, If he is not dressed for the part, his genius ideas would never be lent an ear by anyone, as a matter of fact. Take care of yourself. Be conscious about how you are being perceived by others. Be approachable and know how to engage intellectually with others. Be punctual if ever given a shot at a corporation. No matter how small or insignificant your job may be, dress the part. Be enthusiastic. But above all, be damn good at your job. Remember, you may need to include your previous employer in your resume when you attempt to elevate your career in the future. You wouldn't want to be described as a slacker and a liability when your potential employer inquires about you. Pride gets in the way of a possible good relationship. It destroys your character, your social interactions, and lastly, your opportunities to advance to a better life. But what does it mean to be competent? One may ask, well, without perusing the term through a dictionary and for the purposes of giving it detailed, adequate meaning, being competent means being organized, respectful, ethical, pulling the weight, being useful and profitable, being punctual, being well-dressed, having an etiquette, and being well-mannered, being understandable and articulate in your speech, being precise, persevering, embracing failure as growth and learning from your mistakes, being well-versed in your field of expertise, but most importantly, conducting yourself properly. Competence also means being accountable for your own blunders, owning up to your imperfections, and shaping your worldview when presented with new information. It has nothing to do with sucking up to people, conforming blindly, and accepting demands that are unreasonable. In fact, by the mere fact that your first impressions have an aura of respect builds a type of atmosphere that does not allow others to take advantage of you. Your body language says it all, that you cannot be messed with. Most people, especially those who were bullied in high school or have faced domestic violence in their homes, have a low self-esteem and no confidence. A simple threat or scolding by someone with authority in their workplace may turn them into irresponsible, frightened individuals who are a nervous wreck. You may wonder why these types of people never get fired. This is because their employer is sick and a sadist who takes pride in bullying their employees. To avoid problems, the victim may accept such treatment instead of reporting it to the Human Resources Department or an outside authority that may adjudicate and bring their bullying employer to justice. The situation worsens and such people build resentment and start hating their jobs. Since they build up tension and hatred, they end up wanting to release their stress, and since they cannot stand up to their employer, they end up being violent, come home drunk, and abuse their children and wives. But then again, this is cowardly, which is exactly what they are, cowards. Being competent opens a wide variety of opportunities by simply being present anywhere you may find someone who is in the upper class of his business accidentally. By having a constructive conversation with him or her, they might have an interest in you. And then just like that, spontaneously you climb a ladder. You gain a respectable position in a huge firm or company from a single gesture without presenting your experience or academic accolades, but by being efficient, effective, approachable, and impressive. You have to love yourself to be an ideal alpha. Most of the time, we do know the bad habits we need to get rid of, but we just fail to build the courage to get rid of them. Discipline is needed. Attending master classes, watching inspirational videos, and reading good books could be all we need to begin improving ourselves and getting rid of all the aspects that make us unattractive. This attitude of not caring about what others think of you and being proud of it is a disease plaguing humanity, and we need to get rid of it. The sooner the better. It won't be easy, but that does not mean it cannot be done. If you are not good at something, try it many times until you are good at it. If you are shy, fraternize, show your friendliness, make friends, and soon enough your circle and network shall grow, making your status in the hierarchy of being powerful and influential grow. And with that comes confidence. Be competent.